Welcome back to Vintage Family Recipes with me, Belle. Tonight we're going to make something that I remember making in the 1970s as a young teenager. I don't remember if this is my grandmother's recipe, my mom's recipe, or a recipe from home ec. If you are not my age and you're in high school now, you now call it family consumer sciences. But when I was in school, it was home economics. It's apple muffins because once again, especially if you're up in upstate New York or New England, this is really apple season. And so anytime you're going to make desserts this time of year, apples are always a safe bet, and they're reasonably priced this time of year as well. If you notice, I already have my 1/4 cup of shortening melted. I'm going to put all of my dry ingredients in the large bowl. I don't really know if gluten-free flour was a thing in the 1970s because I didn't have to worry about it in the 1970s, but I do now. And I'm tired of not getting to taste what I make for the show. So I decided today that I would make my muffins using Bob's Red Mill 1-for-1 gluten-free flour. You can use regular flour. You don't have to use gluten-free, obviously. It calls for 1.5 cups of flour. And my apron today is once again from revisiting the 40s. And I absolutely love this apron because it's even more traditional than the one I wore last week because there's no ties. It just crisscrosses in the back. So I'll show you that in just a second. And I will lift my hair up so that you can see the back of my apron. It crisscrosses. There's no ties. It's fabulous. It's just like what my grandmother did. And I need 1/2 cup of sugar. I need cinnamon, baking powder, and salt. 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. And I personally tend to go heavy on the cinnamon, especially if it involves apples. And then I need 2 teaspoons of baking, I made a mess. 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I'm gonna just mix that together really quick so it's all blended. And it says to make a well in the flour mixture. So I'm gonna make my little hole in the middle. Now I already have my melted shortening. I need 1 egg, and I like to mix my egg up before I put it in with anything else because then it does mix easier. So there's my egg. And I need 1/2 cup of milk. If you have the whole sweet milk like this is, that's a low homogenization. It has the cream in it. You don't want to pour it ahead of time because then you'd have to remix it. You want to be able to shake it up really good and then pour it in. So I'm going to just pour it in right now. And I'm going to mix this together. And then I pour it in the well. And then I mix this together again. Do not use a beater for this. You could use a handheld beater, but don't use an electric mixer for this one. Just use a spatula. It's actually the best way to do it. And it's going to be thick. I am very quickly going to peel and chop the apple. I know that's so exciting to watch, right? And this says I need 1 cup of apple. I start by peeling 1 because I don't really know how much is going to be on this apple after I take off the brown spots because it's been sitting on my counter for a little bit. So I might actually have to peel a 2nd apple, but we'll see. So I'm going to real quick chop this up. And I don't make the pieces too small in this. I make them a little small, but I don't chop them up real fine. I like them to be a bit chunky when I make this recipe. If you were in home ec when you were in school or family consumer sciences, and you remember the first recipe that you cooked, drop me a line and tell me what it was. I'd love to know. And almost took my thumb tip off right there, but no blood, no harm, no foul. Just going to use the same cup that I had the milk in. Oh, yeah, I definitely need a 2nd apple. That's okay. And I'd rather have a little too much apple than not enough. It's okay if you have a little too much. Let me grab my last apple. There's my 2 cups of my 1 cup of apple. See, almost did it again. 1 cup of apple. Pour it in. This seems so thick. I am going to double check my measurements of my shortening and my milk to make sure that I did not measure something incorrect, because I don't remember it being this thick, and it just could be that I haven't made it in so long, but I want to just double check myself. 1/4 cup of melted shortening, 1/2 cup of milk, which is what I put in, and 1 egg. Okay, so that is all the liquid. So it is supposed to be this full. Okay, or this thick, I should say. I've already put the muffin papers in the muffin tin. So now I'm going to use my scoop. I'm using my medium scoop. I'm going to use my scoop, and I'm going to put it in the tin. Oops, maybe not. I'm all out of my parchment papers that I like to use, so I'm using leftovers from something else, and I'm not real crazy about them, but it'll work. Maybe I should have used a smaller scoop, but that's okay. We're just gonna stick with the scoop I have, and hopefully we'll get 12 muffins out of this. If not, that's not the end of the world either. It's been so long since I've made these, I forgot how thick it was, obviously, and if I had used the smaller scoop, I would probably get a full 12, but I used the medium scoop, and I don't know that I'm gonna get a full 12, but that's okay. I'll know for next time. When my kids were little, I baked all of the time, and they liked to bake with me when they were little. And then I went back to work full time when they got older, and I haven't baked as much as I used to. And so I'm getting back into a lot of the old family recipes. We're gonna make this 12. We're gonna get there. You could stop here if you liked and just pop these in the oven. It goes in the oven for 20 minutes at 400 degrees. However, the recipe does call for a topping. And so I'm going to make the topping, because why not? And it's going to make them taste even better. So, new bowl, messy fingers. I need 1/4 cup brown sugar packed and 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. And like I said before, I tend to go overboard in cinnamon. I never measure it perfectly. It's usually like a heaping teaspoon, or sometimes I'll even do 2, because I like it to be nice and cinnamony. And you know what? I'm going to add a little more cinnamon. I'm going to do another 1/2 teaspoon. So it ends up being a teaspoon instead of just a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. If I was being really adventurous, I might add nutmeg too, but I'm just going to go ahead and do the cinnamon that they call for. Yeah, I like that better. It smells nice and sugary and cinnamony. Yeah, I'm good with that. Okay, I'm going to grab my spoon, and I am going to put about a tablespoon on top of each muffin. Oh, I'm going to have leftover. That's okay. I'll use it for something else. Can never go wrong with a cinnamon and brown sugar mixture. Okay. I'm going to pop this in the oven and let it cook for 20 minutes at 400. When the timer just went off, let's take a peek. Oh, they look and smell amazing. What's this one like? Because it's kind of thicker than all the other ones. Yes. I'm being paranoid. Oh, they are finished. They're cool enough to take out of the pan. So now we're both going to try one. They smell delicious.
They do.
There we go.
They're still pretty warm.
Yeah, they are warm. Nice. They're hot. Better than I remembered, even with gluten-free flour. Apples make everything better.
I can tell that they're gluten-free. And I normally don't like gluten-free stuff, but these are still pretty good.
Good to know. But if you have to use gluten-free, feel free. The recipe works. I can tell you, I would make these again gluten-free and eat them myself. All of them. Join us next time on Vintage Family Recipes.